Welcome to another edition of Wake Up America, Wake Up. The U.S. presidential election is upon us, accompanied by a tempest of passionate debates, social media battles, and escalating tensions. In less than 24 hours, we the people will shape the future of the United States by electing a new president. The results of this choice will determine the next 4 years of our lives. As we live in 4-year increments, we constantly contemplate whether we made the right decisions for the right reasons. Did we vote for the sake of the country or our selfish interests? Should we be electing the first woman president solely because of her gender, her color? We should consider voting for the next president based on ideas, not personalities. Regardless of the reason behind your vote this year, we will face 4 more years of either pain, anxiety, and financial struggles or prosperity, along with our freedoms. Will we escape from the previous administration's catastrophic and tyrannical leadership? On November 5th, 2024, the path our nation takes will be revealed. As we scrutinize the records of Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, our voting decisions are often driven by our emotions, inner hatreds, fears, and prejudices. This is due to the information disseminated by their opposing political parties, supporters, and paid advocates who are essentially whores of those in power, waiting to receive lucrative government contracts to line their pockets and gain profits. These divisive narratives about each candidate, along with the questionable mainstream media, a humorous concept given their supposed lack of bias, and the nominees of each political faction are all ploys to keep you blinded to the truth and submissive to an ideology of free services, but at the expense of your freedoms. As a nation, we are compelled to wade through the rhetorical ambiguity of lies fed to us by politicians with self-interest, the mainstream media's self-interest, and the elitist oligarchy's self-interest that stretch across our country to manipulate us like sheep. If you fatten the sheep well enough, they will gladly walk to their slaughter, unaware they have abandoned their rights, security, and freedoms. Abandonment of the country, their lives, and their loved ones. It isn't until it's too late that we realize our situation, its impact mentally, physically, spiritually, and economically. By that point, it's too late. And the knee-jerk reaction is to blame those who oppose your candidate, lashing out with a barrage of violent words or fists. This is why I say this is a warning. Are the current administration and politicians aware of potential voter fraud and election interference, preparing us for outrage in this year's election results? Why else would the Biden-Harris administration permit the implementation of the Department of Defense's Directive 5420.01, which provides military support to local law enforcement if violence breaks out? The caveat in this directive is the use of lethal force. Considering that at this very moment, barbed wire and defense fences are being erected around the Capitol, what do they know and not afford us the decency to keep us informed about their expectations? Are they expecting another January 6th federal government-sponsored insurrection? In a few days, The answer to this question will be known. However, I'm not trying to scare you or come off as a fear-mongering politician with wild-eyed accusations that we have a dictator in our midst. No, I'm asking you to wake up, America. Wake up. To start with the obvious, the left and the Democratic Party for 8 straight years have been tireless in their efforts to paint former President Trump as the incarnation of Hitler, and that he will destroy our democracy as we know it. Their use of lawfare tactics to discredit him or disqualify him, and the tirade of Russian collusion, which has been debunked time and time again as a hoax perpetrated by Hillary Clinton. However, the propaganda machine is in overdrive, manipulating emotions of either disdain or adoration. Recently, the left, or the Democratic Party, has likened former President Trump's Madison Square Garden rally on Sunday, October 27th, to the 1939 pro-Americanism event held in the same venue under vastly different circumstances, with Adolf Hitler absent from attendance and not even running for the U.S. presidency. Ironically, several politicians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the self-proclaimed socialist Democrat, likened his rally to another staging of the January 6th Fedsurrection. Democrats and the mainstream media characterized the Trump rally by comparing it to the February 20th, 1939 Nazi rally held in Madison Square Garden, in which the world witnessed a Nazi rally orchestrated by the German-American Bund, attracting over 20,000 attendees. The Bund masqueraded this event 2 days before George Washington's birthday as a pro-Americanism rally, with a striking stage backdrop featuring a portrait of George Washington flanked by swastikas on each side. On October 25th, Sunday, the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden honored the police, firemen, and teachers, among others. It was an event where the former president would engage with supporters, reiterating his platform on supporting the middle class, dealing with the southern border invasion, fiscal responsibility, and American energy independence. In a stark contrast to the 1939 rally, no swastikas or German or Nazi flags graced this venue. Yet the current administration and Democrats would have you believe this was eerily similar to 1939, even going as far as to compare it to the January 6th insurrection, Fedsurrection, if you think otherwise. Is former President Trump an existential threat to democracy or a fascist? Why didn't he become a Hitler incarnate during his first administration? Did he forget to enact his tyrannical plan? Do you see how ludicrous the Democrats and Kamala's narratives are? To help you understand, let me begin with their latest narrative. Trump is a fascist. The term considers the following definition. Fascism is weaponizing the legal system to punish political opponents, taking their homes, stripping their lawyers' law license, and turning them into political prisoners. Is this what Kamala Harris considers fascism? Any rational person not suffering from Trump derangement syndrome would dismiss this as baseless propaganda and a desperate attempt to discredit the former president and those who attended. Why? The answer is clear: sheer political vendetta. The Kamala campaign is in a freefall, desperately seeking to regain its footing. Meanwhile, the Biden-Harris administration struggles to convince the public that a second term for president with Kamala Harris is inevitable. A review of the past 3.5 years reveals a devastating shift from energy independence to reliance on foreign oil once again, leading to skyrocketing oil prices at the hands of the oil oligarchy. Had the administration not recklessly revoked permits for the Keystone XL pipeline, eliminating 11,000 jobs and destroying $2 billion in wages, and attempted to place a ban on fracking, the nation would have continued to enjoy energy independence, a legacy of the Trump era. Let's not forget the hypocrisy and targeting of the unvaccinated during COVID-19 pandemic. While the public faced strict lockdowns, mandates, and forced vaccinations at the federal and private sector levels, known as the no jab, no job policy, politicians and illegal immigrants seem to be exempt from these rules. The administration led by Dr. Anthony Fauci and the CDC demonize those who chose not to get vaccinated, ignoring their right to choose what goes in their bodies. This hypocrisy is especially glaring when compared to the freedom afforded to women who exercise their rights to abortions. It's clear that there are opposing views on the handling of the pandemic, but the treatment of the unvaccinated cannot be ignored. The Afghanistan withdrawal, a moment etched in the memories of many Americans, saw millions of U.S. military equipment abandoned, later being used by the Taliban. This event is marked by haunting images of desperate Afghans at the Kabul airport, some desperately chasing a U.S. Air Force plane and even hanging on to it as it took off, tragically falling to their deaths. A suicide bombing at the airport claimed the lives of 13 U.S. service members. Every president has a crisis early in their term, said John Gans, a former Pentagon official who has written about White Houses during times of war. For the Biden administration, it was the start of a sort of litany of things that didn't go as well as they would have drawn up on the whiteboard. Doug Sosnick says the bungled withdrawal from Afghanistan hurt Biden because it undercut the president's image. He goes on to say, if bringing competence back to the government is one of the kinds of hallmarks of a candidacy, then I think the optics of the Afghanistan withdrawal go completely against the sort of rationale of why you should have voted for Biden. Let's discuss the administration's immigration policy. The administration's policies concerning our southern border crisis permitted violent gang members, terrorists, and sex traffickers to invade the American continent. And what was the rationale behind permitting all these illegal immigrants into the country? The diabolical plan is to permit an election to be swayed by illegal immigrants to keep the Democratic Party in power. A right the very Constitution holds as being illegal, unconstitutional, and an existential threat to democracy. This administration has lowered itself to defile the constitutional law and immigration policy by creating an environment in the United States where any unvetted, unvaccinated, and undocumented person crossing the border is entitled to a free lunch. Not only has the violation begun at the Oval Office, but the Department of Homeland Security under Alejandro Mayorkas through the halls of Congress, which is benefiting from the invasion of this country. Where are all the children missing who entered the United States? And who in the administration is responsible and accountable for the cover-up concerning the missing children. The United States undoubtedly is the biggest participant in the sex trafficking of women and innocent children. Furthermore, innocent American citizens need to know about the murder of a 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungare. What about Laken Riley, a 22-year-old Augusta University nursing student? Each one was murdered because of the open border policies. Please watch this video.
Sunday night, I asked her to not stay up super late because of her coming to work with me in the morning first to do her summer school. She said, okay. I told her good night and I love you. I went to bed, not realizing that that was going to be the last time I saw her.
We're best friends.
Yeah. We're going to shake it again.
I woke up to notice she wasn't in her bed. I'm in my heart trying not to lose my mind because I don't know where she is. I finally remembered her phone had a location on, and her phone was pinging just 2 minutes down the road, right behind the skate park. I start driving to the direction the phone was being pinged at, and I see a couple cop cars with lights on. I see yellow tape, and immediately my heart drops and sinks to the bottom of my stomach. My daughter's hands and ankles were both bound. She was strangled to death, left with no pants. And I know in my heart, she fought incredibly hard. She was not going down without a fight.
We begin with two men we're learning are charged with capital murder tonight, accused of killing a 12-year-old girl.
Police say these men strangled her before dumping her into that creek. Both men were in the country illegally.
Apprehended, then released by Border Patrol less than 3 weeks before Jocelyn's death. The men accused of killing Jocelyn Nungare are affiliated with the gang known for brutal violence.
Kamala Harris was in charge of immigration in our borders. If we had better border policies and not open borders and not these catch and release policies, I truly believe this all could have been prevented. Under her being vice president of this country, my daughter's life was ripped away from her. She had her entire life ahead of her.
Happy birthday, dear Jocelyn.
My daughter is 6 feet in the ground based off of policies that she allowed to keep. Kamala Harris did have one job, and she not only failed, not me, she failed my daughter. She failed Jocelyn. You know, she was only 12. President Trump reached out, gave me his sincerest condolences as not a former president, but just as a father, someone who cares. I believe Donald Trump needs to be back in office. I can at least know that my next child will be safe in this country.
Now I ask you, is that something we are proud of as a nation? Or the fact it happened under the border czar's watch? Vice President Kamala Harris. As Americans, we must evaluate that last 3.5 years of the Biden-Harris administration and ask ourselves, are we better off now than we were 4 years ago? Can we afford to have Kamala Harris as President of the United States to fix the current issues our nation faces, given her involvement in creating these disastrous consequences? We cannot afford her failures to lead our nation out of the resulting nightmares. Are we truly better off if Vice President Kamala Harris assumes the highest office in the United States government, the office of the President of the United States? Wake up, America. Wake up. Please go out and vote.